Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the AI Conversation. My name is Kavi, Junior Consultant here at IBM, and I'm joined by my co-host Harry and our special guest today, Seb. How are you, Seb?
Morning. Yeah, very well, thank you.
I'm good, excited to have you on today. So you're the lead in AI transformation, which brings us a great opportunity to get some knowledge for our viewers and get some of your insights.
Yeah.
So there are going to be three main highlights in this episode today. The first one, an overarching view of what AI transformation is. The second being how we can then maximise the value for our clients. And finally, how our viewers can grow and develop their careers in alignment with the progressions in AI.
Yeah.
So I'll hand over to Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Harry Chamberlain. I'm a junior consultant here at IBM too. And as Kavi says, we're trying to bridge the gap and help you guys understand better of how you can utilise AI in your day-to-day life practices and also implement it into your clients. So Seb, thank you so much for coming on. So excited to have you and kind of understand your knowledge and help our viewers understand it. What do you do and why do you do it?
Okay, so let me start. So hi everyone, I'm Sebastian Weir. I lead our AI analytics and automation practice for IBM Consulting. I've been in IBM just over 11 years and started as a graduate professional in our foundations program when it started, or when I started rather. The last 6 years or so I've been working quite heavily in what was cognitive and now AI, and helping large organizations understand how to use AI technologies to help change what they do. The early stages of that were predominantly customer servicing, so chatbots, virtual assistants, but increasingly, as we're starting to see with everything that IBM's positioning, generative AI is now becoming the de facto way of delivering larger scale transformation, and it has a role to play in the entire delivery life cycle. So any part that you play in a project within IBM, there is a role that AI can play to assist you in what you do. So there's kind of breaking into two areas where we have AI programs of work, which are using AI to transform things, but then increasingly with things like Sidekick or Client Advantage, using that to make sure everyone has the right AI-driven tools to be really, really effective in what they do, is how we're all trying to make sure our consulting teams can really harness the potential that the AI represents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And why do you do it?
Why do I do it?
Why do you love it?
It's really, really innovative, right? It's at the very cutting edge of what technology can do. It's becoming increasingly real, so actually helping people understand and see it is really, really powerful. Before I joined IBM, I was actually I was in law. So I was going through, I did my LPC and things, looking at training contracts, but actually it was incredibly slow-paced, incredibly, frankly, mundane in terms of the market and what we were doing. I wanted to be challenged and looking at actually how do we make sure people can be on the front foot of technology. And that's where IBM was a great opportunity for me to bridge that. And then AI has just been the kind of fuel behind that in terms of my interest in helping people understand how this kind of mythical thing of AI can be something that can be really transformational. And that's why I do it. I think there is so much potential in its use, and getting people to really understand how is a really, really powerful thing, right? So if these series that you're running can help a handful of people understand that AI journey more and get the same type of excitement of helping people understand what AI does, then that's a victory.
So you talk about the power of AI. So what advancement or achievement have you seen or had that you think is a really, really good example of, for a client, when we've seen with a client, it's like that's the thing that they've, the value added has been immense, it's completely changed.
Yeah. There's loads of examples of kind of, we're looking at the more back office processes. So in large scale organizations, right, the typical ones that we work with, they start with a problem, and typically that takes a series of people and processes that take a long time, that are not particularly automated, not particularly efficient to execute. So something that could in isolation be done in a day can take large organizations 30, 40, 50 days to complete. So a large bank at the moment that we're working with their complaints process, right? So complaints is something that a bank don't want to handle, right? They want to have a customer experience that does not lead to complaints. However, large organizations will always get them. It drives really poor NPS, customer satisfaction, huge amount of attrition in the market. So people moving between banks is very easy now. So dissatisfaction drives a real problem for larger banks. And if you look at that process without AI, customer comes in to a branch or on the phone line, makes a complaint. The other person on the receiving end has to write that down. They then put that into a process that sits in a queue. Someone's picking it up, probably in a delivery center offshore somewhere, looking at it, completely isolated to the nature of the person. They've got to do a series of investigations to understand the nature of the complaint, how that impacts the terms and conditions of the organization, the compliance, and how that impacts all of the other guidelines that the organization operates in. They complete their investigation, they make some recommendations, they pass that back to a handler that then has to engage with the customer to get that satisfied. That process takes weeks, right? And being a regulated market like the financial services is, they have standards, they have SLAs, and they have fines if they don't conform to certain timescales. So it's incredibly expensive for what is currently a very inefficient process. And each step in that process, AI can play a really, really effective role. So the first stage of understanding and transcribing things, right? So this podcast will be being transcribed with closed captions, for example, being able to accurately understand what we're saying and write that into text, right? AI is doing that, right? So the first application is being able to make sure that the person capturing the complaint at the first stage doesn't have to remember everything from a 30-minute conversation and then write it all down. That can be done by AI.
So with that large bank, really interesting point, how long is it going to be till they see the return on investment? Because obviously AI is not a cheap product, is it?
No, it's not, but it is increasingly achievable in shorter timescales. And I think that's one of the major shifts we've seen in the last 12, 18 months with technology, is something that would have taken us, a model that would have taken us 12, 18 weeks to develop. With the foundation model, we have that great acceleration in terms of that development life cycle. We have a kind of starting base that means that is much quicker. So the bank that we're talking about is going to get an ROI on its investment with IBM within the year. Wow. So, and not to a one-to-one, we're expecting them to be able to have a sizable multiplier of ROI on the work that we're doing. We're looking to get that introduced into the process and start bleeding into the end-to-end process by the middle of this year. So they have 6 months of running it. They are a more efficient way of doing things, and that will deliver enough benefit to justify why they were doing the program and actually unlock a lot more potential in that process to go after. So it is real. The impact on businesses can be seen today, right? So, and then that, again, shift in terms of how we're working. We are now at a point where we can point to tangible products and programs that we're delivering where that is now real and helping organizations achieve it.
And so you talked about obviously the impacts it can have. Is there a key achievement you can think of that you're really proud of where you've implemented it and had a really good impact on the client?
Well, I think what I'm really, really proud of is the way in which we started this journey in generative AI particularly, right? Because we were doing this before it was generative AI, or the term generative AI had been coined. So a lot of the teams working with the bank in particular started doing that work in May 2022. Right? That is 6 months before ChatGPT was in the public domain. It is nearly a year before Watson X was a product on the market. Right? So having a consulting team who are challenged, who really thrive on innovation and looking at the cutting edge areas of technology and can apply it without it being in the kind of public domain was really, really exciting. And things like data science and the practice and capability of data science is becoming increasingly important in all of our practitioners, because that is how you are going to optimize AI models really effectively. And so having that skill in the practice at a time where this was really, really still emerging technology and being able to deliver that to production for a client, say, well in advance of what we now understand to be generative AI and what is capturing a lot of attention, is a real proud moment for me. Because it's a nice combination of the skills and innovation that we try to incubate in the practice. It's driving tangible change for a client that has a really trusted relationship with us as IBM. and it helps us be on the very front foot of R&D and development, so that when we get captured up in the generative AI capability, we can say, well, we've been doing this for 2 years. There is real credibility in saying we know how to do this properly. And that is one of the real major differentiators for us within IBM, is we do genuinely know how to do this properly, at scale and safely, which is what most organizations are looking for now.
And I don't want to kind of move away from your story too much just yet, because I think it's a really interesting one. I think it's one we should dive back into. How do you go from law to speaking at Tech London, Seb? You know, what's over that time period, what have you done to grow your career and develop your ability to understand AI?
I think that there's a couple of things that I look back on my development, particularly in IBM and the shift to IBM that I made, that I think are factors that I encourage a lot of young professionals to think about, right? One is being curious and being proactive, right? So I came in with a very different background to a lot of people that would be coming into this space. Didn't do a science-based degree, I computer science or engineering, and so I had to be curious and proactive and really understanding what was being done in the data programs I was being involved in, and what became cognitive technologies, and then later AI. That was on me to really upskill and develop a capability that I understood and could be credible talking to clients and building teams around me to be able to do. And you can't do that without challenging yourself to really get under the covers of what the technology can do. The other bit is a little bit more out of your control, but there's times in your career and times in your work that you're doing at IBM, you get a bit lucky, right? You find a relationship or you build a network that is a little bit fortune, and you kind of ride that a little bit. So I look back at the first set of projects I ran at IBM. I was involved in an IBM. I'm incredibly fortunate that the project I was brought into with RBS at the time was a part of the same team that Michael Conway was in. Was part of a data platform team that was driving the types of innovation that actually I went on to deliver 3, 4, 5 years later. So that kind of finding the right place and knowing that and recognizing that you found something good is a real difficult thing in the moment to recognize, but one thing that you've got to be able to really capture, because those are the networks and relationships that I've continued to build on throughout my career, right? So Michael and I still work very closely together in Lloyd's and others, and that's predicated on 10 years of working together throughout our careers. So you've got to be able to ride your luck a little bit when you find those projects, but build that network. And that's the final aspect I would talk to in terms of young professional and career development, is the network is really, really important, but understanding what a valued relationship is versus a connection on LinkedIn is a big distinction, right? There has to be that value exchange in terms of building a network. So when you go out and you meet people and leaders in our business, what is that value exchange that you're bringing, so that when they have the opportunity, they think, I'm going to bring Harry in, because the last time we had this conversation, he's clearly very proactive, he's clearly doing these things, I want him on my project. And it's, how do you get to that balance of being that kind of value exchange in a network that you can then start to harness as you grow? I think those are the 3 areas that's allowed me to continue to develop, to be more and more confident in terms of doing that, and also be willing to take kind of controlled risks. And you end up getting the platforms to do these types of things, and you get increasingly more confident to talk at Tech London and to talk at Gartner and things like that, because it becomes a little bit more second nature because you've been doing it a lot. But you've got to take that risk. You've got to use that kind of proactive mindset to try and develop and be confident that you've got the technical credibility to stand behind some of the statements that you're making.
Absolutely.
So going back to, you were saying obviously the power of Gen AI and the things it can do. Obviously that's is one thing, having an idea. How do we then implement that with our clients? What's the way forward with that?
I think we're moving away from the Gen AI can do everything, because with enough lateral thinking that you can apply generative AI to any problem. We are now with that kind of that phase of the technology adoption, which is, why are we doing it, and is it the right thing to do in this process, or the right thing to do in this point? And your point around ROI was increasingly important, right? We are no longer seeing the scales of investment in generative AI that we were seeing a year ago, 2 years ago, in terms of the hyperscalers and even IBM investing to try and drive Gen AI adoption. So clients are going to look for, what's the business case? What's the output? What's the change? What am I trying to drive? And why is this the right thing to do now? So again, this is from a skills and from a capability perspective for our clients. It's less about the innovation and more about how is it going to impact and how is it going to drive value for them? What does that value represent? Is that driving revenue? Is that reducing cost? Is that something they're going to benefit from? And that, from a consulting perspective, is again what leads us to win work and really help clients drive change, is making sure that we understand the value associated with what we're doing and can articulate it. And if we can do that, we've been shown that we are winning more and more work where we have the compelling business case and we have the reason and trust in our clients to drive change. That's where a lot of the generative AI stories are being generated from. So it is a bit back to the kind of more traditional way of delivering change, which is understanding the business problem, understanding how the technology can be used to address the problem, and what's the value going to be unlocked. And if we can piece those three things together, that's how we then help our clients start to get on top of what this generative AI capability is, because we go to lots of clients and they all turn to us and say, we've got thousands of use cases. Right? You can guarantee thousands of those use cases won't deliver any benefit, they're just interesting. And it's kind of getting to the balance of where is the value associated with doing it, 'cause it's not going to be cheap, but actually where is the benefit, because there is a lot of efficiency and benefit hanging off the back of applying it properly.
I'm interested to hear your opinion on our implementation of our AI at IBM and whether or not we're doing it too slowly, to be brutally honest. I know it's a bit of one of those questions, but the thing is, right, Seb, is that we were the forefront, the leaders in AI adoption and pushing it towards our clients, going back 12 months. Over that year period, our competition has started to catch up with us. Is there now a question that we need to start putting our foot on the gas a little bit?
Yes, right, and obviously I can be selfish in saying that, given that I'm responsible for running a lot of our AI consultancy teams and the AI practice, right? So I want to see us really accelerate AI adoption in everything that we're doing. It's interesting that the challenge is, are we being too slow? And I think if I look back at how the organization I joined 10 years ago is so dramatically different to the organization we operate in today in terms of the tools we have, the ways we work, and the intelligence that sits behind a lot of the capabilities. So a lot of the reference that we use for our clients is IBM as client zero, right? And you think about this Ask HR capability that a lot of us kind of take for granted, incredibly powerful when it comes to the AI capability that sits behind it. And the fact that we have rolled that out to 160,000 consultants as a day-to-day way of using our HR processes is a fantastic story for all of the other organizations in adoption. So I think from a consulting and go-to-market, I think we need to definitely double down in terms of our focus on why AI is right now and accelerating that. If in the base of the question is IBM being too slow? I think, well, actually, if you think about how we are adopting it as an organization, we're still way ahead of the market in terms of how we as practitioners, we as an organization have blended AI into lots of processes that we now just take for granted. Okay. That story, I think most clients, I'd love an Ask HR capability. And we just go, well, we just sits there and we ask it questions when we need it and it gives us the answer. Yes, I think that's a really powerful thing, that we can take that to our clients and contextualize for them to say, well, we use AI every day in Ask HR, Ask IT, in Client Advantage as a tool that everyone has access to, and the right control and guardrails behind it. Those are the stories that make clients go, we do need to be doing something more here.
Are there any recurring pain points you see from clients, just that are always coming back and saying, yes, the same thing again and again? Or?
I think there's risk. Risk and compliance is increasingly becoming a challenging area for us. And I think that comes back to education and understanding. We're spending more and more time with our clients back to the kind of proper education of what the technology can do and why it's safe. And so those areas become increasingly challenging for us as we move from the kind of POC cycle into really scaling the technology. And that is an area where we have, again, from a point of view and from a capability perspective, it really differentiates IBM. So the tech stack of what's next.gov and everything we're doing around governing AI safely is helping us kind of demystify and show that we do understand how to control the technology effectively. And a call out to kind of anyone listening on the calls, right? If there's training that you want to look at, if there's any training, if you're thinking about kind of your learning and where to go, governance and model risk management and thinking about the concepts behind how we manage AI is an absolute goldmine for us in terms of areas our clients need help with. And if you're looking for areas where you want to think about getting into AI, understanding how we control it and what we need to look for is a really, really accessible way of thinking about starting that journey. So it helps in both kind of getting your understanding of some of the key concepts down, but also in an area where our clients need more and more help. So that would be an area where I'd say that both our clients need help with, and we need people and capability in our practices to really make sure that's at the center of what we do.
Interesting. And in terms of, I've got a bit of an impossible question for you, but where do you see AI in the future? You know, where's this going? What's going to happen in the next 5 years? Seb? What's your opinion?
I'd love to say there's going to be a big old kind of revolution. It's going to be adopted everywhere. Unfortunately, I'm steering towards the slightly more kind of progressive space of incremental change as part of the technology. I just look at the way in which we have this kind of real polemic adoption in our heads. Like some organizations have just stopped it dead and said we're not doing it, and they've kind of closed themselves off to it. Other organizations have adopted it massively, and from a generational divide, right, until this has borne its way through its impact through education and into the kind of next generation of young professionals as the second nature technology, I think that's when we'll really see the acceleration that we expect our organizations to take, because we're still in that fairly early incubation stage. So if I look 5 years down the line, I think we will have the advancing companies being able to point to genuinely being AI first in things that they do, and where we point to examples within IBM of being client zero, as I talked about, we have a library of references where we've done that, and other organizations have taken that AI first mentality. That will be the 10%. There'll be the 50% in the middle who are trying to get to that stage, and then there will be the what's left, the 40% who are still starting to embark on that journey, because we've been doing things like data strategy with clients for 10, 15, 20 years, right? And we still haven't got them to a place where that's second nature. And I think we're going to have to go through that maturity curve with clients as well. And it will be faster, but I don't think it'll be as fast as some of the visionaries want us to be.
Just following on from that, so I've sort of got 2 points. Where do you think AI is going to have the most value in terms of industries, and which technologies you think are going to work best with AI as it's going at the minute?
I'd love to see health and life sciences be the area where we can really see the most dramatic impact. And we were, as an organization, very forward thinking with things like Watson Health 5-10 years ago, when we were first talking about that area as the area of target. But again, as we see lots of multi-model based technologies emerge, models be developed, I'd love to see the medical areas really drive research and innovation in that space, because I think it's where harnessing the amount of data that sits there can have the most transformative impact on everyone, both in terms of driving innovation and research across disease and virus and medical treatment, but also just in terms of the cost it's going to take for us to be able to make a sustainable healthcare system in the UK. The flip of that, places where there's significant investments, so financial services will continue to be a driving force behind AI adoption, and that will continue to grow because they have a huge amount of competitive market, they have a huge amount of investment to drive change. So I think that will be the other area where, if I was being less optimistic and more realistic about where the investment's going to come, I suspect those are the sectors that we will see a lot of transformation take place. Remind me, sorry, what the second question
Second
was.
part was the technologies that are going to work best with AI.
I think.
What do you think is a standalone?
I don't think it's necessarily standalone. I think what we'll see is most of the technologies will start to embed AI natively into it. And so this ecosystem that we've already operating in. And I think one of the key benefits, and I don't want to sound like an IBM branded seller, but the open nature of what we're doing and the fact that we can really help any organization on any platform is helpful, because Salesforce is already bringing AI into its platform, right? Adobe has already got AI built in. ServiceNow, all of these kind of large platforms which organizations have already been through the adoption life cycle of, have already started that journey of embedding AI into the platform. So there'll be that balance now between where clients choose to invest in building their own versus where they choose to just embrace embedded AI technologies into the estate that they've already got. Copilot's another great example of that. Most organizations, including IBM, have MS365, right? And Word and PowerPoint and Excel are the tools we use every day. Right? We're not going to go and build models that help us create PowerPoints. We're probably going to go and use Copilot in the next 6-12 months, because it's going to be native, it's going to be well trained, it understands the formats. And therefore thinking about how we embrace embedded AI where it's already and naturally sitting, versus actually where our openness of technology allows us to really advance change that has a business case, I think is where we can play.
So in terms of helping our viewers grow their careers, how do non-technical people like myself, like Kavi, bridge the gap and understand, how to onboard clients, how to get clients to believe in this AI adoption? Is that through learning online, your learning platform, or is it practically sitting down and working with it?
As a classic consulting answer for you, right? It's both. I think there is plenty of good materials on your learning, and lots of training coming up where you can get the basic understanding of what the technology does and how it works. That, from a foundation perspective, is important, so that you understand the concepts, you understand the capabilities that the technology has. But getting hands-on with the technology and understanding really what it can and can't do is almost the parallel step, right? And Sidekick or Client Advantage is a great way of doing that. So if you're not using it already, everyone listening to this should log into Sidekick, get on board and use it, right? See what it can do, create some prompts, create some assistance, load some documents in there, use the type of technology that sits within that platform, because it will really help you understand what it can do really well, how it doesn't work in some things that you give it, how you make it better. And it's that experience that I think is really, really important for you to be able to contextualize some of that learning. And then also bring that to your projects, right? And you don't have to be deeply technical, but whether you are a project manager, you're working in a PMO office, whether you are building Excels, doing financial tracking, whether you're a BA, every role that you're going to be doing, Sidekick can help you, right? If you are building macros in Excel that are trying to do something, ask the model to help you kind of make that. If you are a BA and you're building user stories or you're building out personas, right? Sidekick can create those with you. And so thinking about how you use it in your everyday role will give you the confidence that you understand what it can and can't do, because there's loads of stuff it can't do, right? And understanding that limit and being comfortable with how you can use the technology is going to be the first step. Then that will then give you the insight into go, well, actually I want to know more on how it does it, or actually I want to know how we can take these assistants to market, and you go down the strategy route. And then if it's the technical route, there's loads of data science and Udemy licenses out there to be able to go and do the right courses to develop Python or other analytical languages that will allow you to progress that technical aspect of the career that you would need to be able to move into more of a data science type capability or a data engineering role. But I think those are the first steps I'd really encourage listeners or viewers thinking about. Is education and your learning and the platform on there is fantastic to start. Do it alongside the practical testing, using, and thinking about when you're doing this now, actually how can you use Sidekick to help you in what you're doing, and then take that to your project. Tell them how you're using it, and because I can guarantee not enough people in your project think about using it for everyday tasks.
Yep.
And then you can get that mindset into thinking. That's how we help our clients become AI first, by being AI first ourselves. And it will give you that exposure to think, oh, well, let me try this model or that model, what's the difference? And you can then start to develop that kind of curiosity that's going to help you develop.
Just building on that, so one of the questions I've got for Sidekick is, I found it brilliant, but I don't understand how each of the different models work. What's best for your generic consultant? Is it a llama model? Where should we head for summarization, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, in the first instance, I think the llama models are fairly strong across the board to do the general stuff that you're going to be going after. Then if you're going into different, more targeted areas, then clearly there's going to be different models that you can start thinking about. So whether it's kind of code-based, testing-based, we have star coder-based models that will be more effective at being able to understand coding and technical languages. But for the day-to-day work, then the stuff that I've just talked about, using the system just for questions, answers, llama models in there are going to be really, really effective.
Yeah.
But again, test it, right? Go and ask the same question to 3 or 4 different models, see how it differs in answers, and think about, well, actually, why has it done that? And challenge the models themselves, right? So why have they gone about doing it that way? And you can think about that. Then opens up questions around some of the guardrails that sit beneath the model, right? So why does llama give you answers in certain ways or reference to certain points that a GPT model doesn't? It comes back to actually the underlying guardrails and control framework that the research teams have used to build those models. That will take you down an endless path of investigation, but that's the point around, and the beauty of Sidekick is it gives you the ability to test different things.
Yeah.
Which one do you use most?
Llama. It's just that it's the default in there, and it gives me enough to be able to move forward. But I mean, the teams, and if you're starting to see limitations and not giving you what you want, there's plenty of people across there that can help you think about, well, actually, why would I change the model, and not how I change the model, but why am I changing it? What is it doing differently? And I think there's research papers out there and plenty of people out there in the practice area that would be happy to debate the merits of llama versus Anthropic versus any of the other models that sit within the open market, Mistral and others.
Yeah. Many people, I think, look up to you as a leader in AI currently. The way you've developed your career over the last, what do you say, it was about 10 years or so?
Yeah.
Very impressive, and congratulations. How do we and our viewers, how do we do that? What's your advice to growing your career like you've done?
I think it comes back to a point earlier in kind of, I benefited from a good network early in my career that I've been able to manage, maintain, and grow with. So establishing that early has been a really good benefit for me. The point around being ambitious but being grounded in terms of you're always going to be learning, right? There's always the opportunity in any role that you have to learn around actually how does IBM work, how does the project and client work, and how does that help you develop your career, right? A lot of people will think about the role they're going to take and the project they're going to go on, and be really, really kind of apprehensive about taking certain roles, but embracing that is part of the challenge, because you can turn a role into anything that you want it to be, really. My experience is I learned far more from the roles I didn't necessarily think I was going to enjoy, or in client circumstances were particularly challenging, than I did on projects that I knew I was going to go in and be successful in. And so challenging yourself to take a role that is perhaps out of your comfort zone is going to be where you're going to develop quickly. And be challenged and take on that challenge is the other area. And then think about, well, actually make sure that you've got that plan in terms of where you want to go in the next 1, 3, 5 years, and work with coaches on it. Be very clear with what your ambition is and where you want to take it, and who, if you're looking up to people in the organization, right? I don't think there's anyone in the leadership and the broader leadership of the organization that wouldn't be willing to have the conversation around mentorship and telling their story, right? So approach people in the right way to learn from that experience, because everyone's plotted their slightly different path through this organization. And I think there's a lot to be learned, but also a lot of mentoring out there available to you if you ask.
We spoke about non-technical people bridging the gap with technical people. What do you think the skills and the demand is going to be for the specifically technical people? Where are they going to be needed, and where should they be heading?
If I look at across the practice, the two key areas that we are constantly in demand for is data science and data engineering. So those two capabilities are where people thinking about cross-skilling or developing technical areas, I would encourage them to consider, because that is the aspect that allows us to really bring AI into the capabilities or programs that we're running. You've got to have an element of data science to understand how you test these models to make sure that they continue to be accurate and performant. So those are the two kind of technical paths, I think, that are of particular demand right now. And there is a long path of capability and kind of career path in that space to become a truly kind of fluent, strong data scientist is one that will take years, right? And practice and training and experience. And so that's a path that you can take through both the kind of the IBM platforms, but also a lot of the external courses and training available. Data engineering is the other area that's becoming back to an area which is, again, very strong, because AI as a capability is only going to optimize and provide insight intelligence over data that we trust. So we're getting a lot of focus back into actually data strategy and making sure that we have the right controls and data governance in play. That means that we really can exploit AI. So the data engineering, data governance capabilities that we had as an organization and is now growing again, because in order to get your AI right, you still have to have your data in the right place, and the right formats, and in the right controls, and with the right cataloging and understanding and lineage. So all of that data capability is one that is, again, increasing in terms of demand and an area I'm looking to kind of continue to grow with part of the practice.
So I'm conscious of time, but we would love to hear we've called it a one-liner, what's your statement, what's your thing about AI that you think you would tell our viewers?
Okay, so I think I did this one at Tech London, right? But for any of the kind of sports enthusiasts on listening, right? David Brailsford had this concept of marginal gains when he developed the cycling capability that led us to lots of gold medals and real success. And it's the idea of breaking down a bike, analyzing each component and making it that bit more effective. And you got compounded benefit when you brought it all back together that gave them a competitive advantage. That's where I see AI playing in our delivery lifecycle as IBM. Right? If we take a problem and a process in any delivery problem that we're taking to our clients, if we can break it down and apply AI to different component parts, when we put that process back together, it's going to be a lot more effective and a lot more efficient. And you don't have to do all of it. You can target a really small part of that process. But starting somewhere targeted can be really, really effective. And that concept of marginal gains is something I want to try and make sure that we're thinking about when we're kind of deconstructing what we're doing and thinking about how we apply AI, because it can be really, really effective in the benefit.
That's a really good line. Thank you.
All right.
Seb, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Really, really interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So today we learned, who is Seb Weir? What is his story? And how he's gone from law to Think London. In addition to that, we've also learned how to implement AI into our clients, and where Seb sees implementation of AI in the next 5 years, with the importance of governance really going to play a massive role. Furthermore to that, we've also learned the importance of developing your network, maintaining that network, and learning both on online courses, certifications, and also getting hands-on with our product of Sidekick and learning what its capabilities are. Thank you to the both of you. Thank you, Kavi. Thank you, Seb. And thank you for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.